My son shoved me off the boat into the freezing water, yelling, "Say hi to the sharks!" Then he swam away, leaving me stranded 10 miles from shore. He thought he'd erase me. But I survived. When he came home, I was waiting. "I've got something for you too, son. You won't believe what happened next." Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and drop a comment with the current time where you're watching. Arnold slammed his shoulder into my front door, splintering it open. The brass knob punched a dent into the wall. "Where's the money, old man?" He threw his briefcase onto the dining table with a crack so loud the salt shaker spun. I set down my newspaper, folding it neatly along its creases. My glasses slipped lower on my nose as I looked at him. Sweat stained his expensive collar, even though the July night was cool. "Arnold, what? Don't play games with me." He stalked the floor between my kitchen and living room, his shoes squeaking against the wood. "I know about the insurance. I know about the savings. I need it now." His fist struck the table again, and my coffee mug rattled. I rose slowly, my joints stiff, my body reminding me of my 68 years. "Son, when I'm gone, you'll inherit everything. You know that. When you're gone." Arnold laughed, sharp, bitter, unhinged. He spun on his heel, eyes burning. "I can't wait that long. Do you understand? I can't wait." Through the window I heard Mrs. Patterson's dog barking, and the sea breeze carried salt and kelp. Normally it calmed me. Tonight it chilled. "Arnold, please sit. Let's talk this through." "Talk?" He kicked my leather chair, the one Margaret had bought me for our 40th anniversary. "I've been talking for months. And you just sit here, hoarding money, while I drown." My hands shook. Not from fear, from disappointment. This wasn't the boy I taught to ride a bike. Not the young man who once graduated with honors. "I've offered to help," I reminded him. "You wouldn't listen." "Help?" His voice rose to a roar. "You mean your lectures about responsibility? Budgeting?" His arms swept across the mantel, sending photo frames crashing to the floor. Our life spilled out, Margaret in her wedding dress, Arnold blowing out candles, Christmas mornings wrapped in laughter. "You're destroying my memories," I whispered. "Good. Now you know what it feels like." I stepped closer, fighting to sound firm despite my trembling. "I won't give you money to gamble away. That's not helping, it's feeding the problem." His face twisted, unfamiliar, ugly. "You stubborn old fool. You think you'll live forever?" He leaned so close I caught the sting of alcohol on his breath. "Maybe that won't last as long as you think." The words lingered like smoke. Ice crawled up my spine. Arnold's expression flickered, panic, regret, but he grabbed his briefcase and bolted. "Arnold, wait." Too late. His car engine roared, gravel spraying as his taillights vanished into darkness. I stood in the doorway, listening to the silence. The sea breeze rattled the hinges. Somewhere in the night, a foghorn moaned. 7 days passed. No word. No apology. I checked my phone constantly, hoping for something, anything. The silence was worse than the fight. Tuesday morning, I went through my usual ritual: coffee grounds, water, wait for the familiar gurgle. Routines were the only thing that kept loneliness from swallowing me. At exactly 9, the phone rang. Arnold's name lit the caller ID. My hand hovered. What if he was still angry? What if he meant those words? But he was my son. "Hello, Dad?" His voice was different, quieter, almost like the boy I remembered. "Dad, I need to apologize." Relief poured through me as I sank into the chair. "Arnold, thank God. I've been waiting. I was wrong last week. Completely wrong. I said things I didn't mean. Things that scared me the moment they left my mouth. Son, we all say things we regret when we're upset." "No, Dad." What I said was unforgivable. "But maybe I can make it up to you." My coffee sat untouched, cooling, while I searched his voice for anger. Instead, I heard something else, something I hadn't heard in years. Vulnerability. How do you want to make it up to me? Remember when I was a kid? The fishing trips every summer? You taught me patience, how to cast, how to love the quiet. A smile crept across my face. I remembered it clearly, Arnold at 8, squealing as he reeled in his first bluegill at Monterey Lake. Margaret packing sandwiches, reminding me to be patient with his endless questions. Those were good times, I said softly. Maybe we could go fishing tomorrow. Like the old days. Only this time, deep-sea fishing. You always said you wanted to try it. Something stirred in my chest. Not exactly excitement, more like a fragile hope. Arnold had never cared much for fishing as an adult. He was always too preoccupied, too self-important, too restless to sit still with a line in the water. But I could still hear Margaret's voice in my mind. Give him another chance, Norbert. Beneath all that rage, he's still your son. The ocean sounds wonderful, I heard myself reply. Really? You mean it? His voice cracked with something that almost sounded like relief. Of course, son. Why wouldn't I? I thought after everything, you'd never want to talk to me again. Never, Arnold. You're still my family. All I've got left. Those words filled me with more warmth than the sunlight spilling through my kitchen window. Outside, Mrs. Patterson strolled by with her terrier, as she did every morning. For a moment, life felt ordinary again. What time should I be ready? I asked. Before sunrise, if you can. Fish bite best at first light. We'll need to head far offshore to find the big ones. How far are we talking? 10, maybe 15 miles. That's where the real monsters live. I made a note to dust off my old gear and pick up some heavier tackle. My lake rods wouldn't cut it out there. I'll be ready, I promised. Thanks, Dad. You don't know how much this means to me. After we hung up, I stood staring at the steam curling from my forgotten coffee. Tomorrow, I told myself, tomorrow I'll have my boy back. The bell above Bay Tackle Shop jingled as I stepped inside, greeted by the comforting smell of salt-dried bait, rubber boots, and possibility. Nor Barrett. Charlie Mendez looked up from arranging lures. Haven't seen you in months. Going after trout again? Not this time, Charlie. I pulled a folded list from my pocket. I need gear for ocean fishing. Deep water. Charlie raised an eyebrow. Ocean, huh? That's new for you. Special occasion. My son wants to head out tomorrow. Well, let's get you kid out right. He guided me toward the racks of rods. For offshore, you'll need something sturdier. This 8-foot spinning rod, medium heavy action, will handle rockfish, lingcod, maybe even halibut if you're lucky. I tested its weight, felt the give in the fiberglass. Heavier than what I was used to. More serious. This feels right. You'll want at least 20-pound test line. Ocean fish don't play around. With steady hands, Charlie respooled my reel. Where you launching from? Arnold says we'll be heading 10, 15 miles out. Charlie stopped winding. That's big water, Norbert. You taking your own boat? Arnold's got it handled. He gave me a look. Make sure you've got the safety kit, radio, flares, life jackets. The ocean's not as forgiving as a lake. I nodded, though Arnold hadn't mentioned any of that. He'd always been confident. Maybe too confident. Charlie pulled down some circle hooks. Less gut hooking, easier on the fish. Sardines work well for bait, but I've got artificials you might like too. Half an hour later, I left the shop with a bag of gear and a thinner wallet. The sun warmed my back as I drove home, imagining the trip ahead. That evening, while I sorted hooks and tied leaders, the phone rang. Arnold. Just confirming for tomorrow, Dad. I'm ready. Just came back from Charlie's with new tackle. Perfect. And you're good with heading pretty far out? I know you prefer staying near shore. There was an edge in his voice, an urgency that didn't quite match the casual words. How far exactly? Far enough to find the really good ones. Trust me. Out there it's just us and the sea. Total peace. Isolation. I made sandwiches the way Margaret used to, ham and cheese wrapped in wax paper. Filled my thermos. Laid out my lucky fishing hat, the one from Arnold's first catch 25 years ago. Before bed, I checked the weather one more time: clear skies, calm seas. Ideal. I set my alarm for 5:30, though I knew excitement, or maybe unease, would wake me earlier. At dawn, Arnold's truck idled in my driveway, exhaust clouding in the fog. I locked the door, grabbed my tackle box and thermos, and slid into the passenger seat. "Morning, Dad." His smile looked real enough, but his fingers drummed against the steering wheel. "Ready for our big day?" I set my coffee between us, Buddy Holly crooning softly from the radio. Arnold pulled out fast, tires spitting gravel. "Beautiful morning," I said. "Where are we heading?" He took Highway 1, away from the lakes. "Change of plans. We're going into the ocean. That's where the real fish are." "You always liked a challenge, didn't you?" Something cold settled in my stomach. "I don't know, Arnold. The ocean can be dangerous." "Trust me," he said with a forced laugh. "When have I ever let you down?" The question hung heavy in the cab as the coastline blurred past, mile by mile. "This feels a long way from home," I said, doing my best to keep the unease out of my voice. "That's exactly the idea," Arnold replied, grinning in a way that never touched his eyes. "No people, no distractions. Just us and the fish. You'll love it, Dad. Completely cut off. Nothing but water in every direction." His words were supposed to sound comforting, but instead they tightened something deep in my chest. Margaret's voice returned to me. "Give him another chance, Norbert. He's still your son." But as I studied Arnold's rigid profile, his jaw locked, eyes glued to the horizon with almost unnatural focus, I wasn't sure anymore if my boy was still in there. The fog thinned as the sun climbed, revealing endless blue swells capped with white spray. The ocean looked breathtaking and merciless. I'd been out here once, years ago, and still remembered how small you felt once the shoreline disappeared. "How far are we planning to go?" I asked. "Far enough you can't turn back," Arnold said flatly. "That's where the real fish live." A shiver ran through me. 20 minutes later, he pulled into a modest marina. Seagulls shrieked above us, their cries mingling with the slap of waves against pilings. A handful of boats rocked lazily in their slips, but most berths stood empty. Arnold cut the engine, and in the hush that followed I could hear my pulse thudding alongside the water's steady rhythm. Families bustled nearby with coolers and picnic baskets. Engines coughed to life. Normal people preparing for normal outings. Arnold moved quickly, unloading our gear. "This way, Dad." "Slip 12? I trailed him down the dock, tackle box in one hand, thermos in the other. The vessel he stopped at was bigger than I'd pictured, an 18-foot motorboat with outriggers and a compact cabin. "You actually know how to run this thing?" I asked skeptically. "Took a boating safety course last month." He tested the throttle, tapped the fuel gauge, checked the controls. "Everything's perfect." I realized then, this hadn't been spur of the moment. He'd planned every detail. He even inspected the safety kit, jackets, flares, marine radio. All present, all in order. "Hop aboard, Dad. Let's get set up." The boat rocked as I climbed in. Arnold loosed the lines and fired up the engine, the vibration thrumming through the hull. "Here we go!" he called over the roar. We motored out of the protected harbor into the wide, glittering bay. Other boats surrounded us, some still heading out, others already hauling back their catches. It looked so ordinary. Arnold pushed us farther and farther, the shoreline shrinking until the marina was nothing but a smudge. "This is already pretty far," I shouted. "Not even close," he shot back. "The real fish are way out, past where the small boats ever dare." The last traces of weekend fishermen disappeared behind us. Suddenly it was just us, an insignificant dot in a vast stretch of water. Swells grew larger, rocking the hull. Spray stung my face. "Why don't we stop here?" I suggested. "Land's barely visible." Arnold glanced at his GPS, shook his head. Trust me. I know where we're going. 15 more minutes. The coastline dwindled to a faint smear on the horizon. 8, maybe 10 miles from shore. No boats in sight. No one at all. My gut tightened. This wasn't the simple fishing trip I'd expected. This was something else. Something darker. Arnold, this is far enough. Let's drop anchor. Not yet, he said. There's a canyon out here. That's where the giants feed. But when I looked at him, it wasn't hunger for fish I saw. His eyes weren't on the water, they were measuring distance. Calculating. Then he killed the engine. The sudden stillness was unnerving, broken only by waves slapping at the hull. We drifted in the middle of nowhere. So, now what? I asked cautiously. Arnold reached for the rods, his smile sharp and unnatural. Let's get the rods ready, Arnold said, his voice forced into a brightness that didn't ring true. You take the tackle box, Dad. Line up those lures like you always do. I knelt at the bow, opening the box with practiced motions. The polished lures glinted in the sunlight, spoons, jigs, spinners, decades of collecting. Ordinary tools for what should have been an ordinary day. But nothing about this moment felt ordinary. Remember that first fish you ever caught? I asked, searching for some spark of warmth between us. That little bluegill at Lake Monterey. I remember everything, Dad. His voice came from directly behind me. Every trip. Every speech about patience and responsibility. Something in his tone made me turn my head. Arnold stood only a few feet away, clutching a fishing rod not like gear, but like a weapon. His smile had vanished, replaced by an expression of cold intent. Arnold, what's wrong? Nothing's wrong anymore, he said, stepping closer. In fact, things are about to be perfect. The boat rocked gently on swells. 8 miles from shore. Not a vessel in sight. Just a father and son, alone in the endless Pacific. I've been thinking about our talk last week, Arnold continued, circling behind me as I crouched over the tackle box. About when I'll inherit everything. Son, we can. His shove came like a hammer. My world spun sideways. The tackle box flew, lures scattering like sparks. Then the ocean swallowed me whole. The shock of the cold stole my breath. I surfaced, choking on salt, the boat floating just yards away. Arnold stood at the rail, watching with satisfaction. Arnold, help me! I can't, he said. His voice carried clearly over the water. I hope the sharks find you first. That would make this perfect. The betrayal seared worse than the cold. This wasn't a mistake. This was murder, carefully planned. My son had brought me here to die. Now I'll get everything, he said. The life insurance. The house. All of it. I fought toward the boat, but my heavy jacket dragged at me like chains. Arnold didn't move to help. Instead, he started the motor. Arnold! Please come back! The engine roared. He turned the bow toward shore. Never once did he glance back. Not a flicker of hesitation. No regret. Help! I screamed into the emptiness. Somebody, help me! But the ocean gave no reply. Only the wind and the slap of waves as the boat shrank to a speck, then disappeared. This couldn't be real. Sons don't kill fathers for money. Families don't end this way. But the Pacific didn't care about right or wrong. The sea waited, silent and eternal, ready to take another life claimed by greed. I shouted his name once more, but only the waves answered. My voice cracked into nothing. Silence. Just water stretching forever. The jacket weighed me down like lead. With numb hands I tugged at the zipper, finally slipping free. The heavy canvas sank instantly, swallowed by the depths. I floated lighter now, but more exposed. The water was bone-chilling, maybe 60 degrees. Already I felt the heat draining from my body. I forced myself to keep moving. Margaret's face filled my mind. During her last days with cancer, she'd whispered to me, "Never give up, Norbert. Even when it feels impossible, there's always a chance." Her strength had carried us through those dark months. Now I needed it more than ever. My legs cramped from constant kicking. I rolled onto my back, conserving what little energy I had, scanning the horizon for salvation. Nothing. Only the endless blue, sea and sky blurring together. The sun sagged lower, painting long shadows across the waves. How long had I been out here? An hour? 2? Time lost meaning when survival was the only clock. Someone will come, I muttered to the sea. Someone has to. But doubt crept in as steadily as the cold. Arnold had chosen this spot with care. Well beyond shipping lanes. Far from fishermen. Far from anyone who could hear me. He had planned everything with chilling precision. My own son had orchestrated my death. The treachery cut deeper than the freezing Pacific. I had raised him, taught him to fish, guided him through homework, celebrated his graduations, and he repaid all that love by trying to kill me for money. I won't give you the satisfaction, I muttered aloud, my voice steadier now. I will survive, Arnold, and I will see justice served. Margaret's memory surged through me, lending strength. She had faced impossible odds, never complaining, never surrendering hope. I could do the same. I resumed treading water, arms and legs moving in a steady rhythm to maintain warmth and circulation. The Pacific was immense and merciless, but I was alive. Still fighting. Seabirds wheeled overhead, crying, offering no aid. The distant rumble of waves against rocks hinted at California's coast, though it might as well have been another planet. Still, I pushed forward. Margaret wouldn't forgive me if I gave up. Somewhere out there, my grandchildren needed their grandfather to come home. A small dark speck appeared on the horizon, tiny against the burning orange sky. I squinted, willing it to be real and not a desperate illusion. It grew larger. Music carried faintly across the water, electronic beats that grew louder with every second. A massive yacht, easily 100 feet long, glided across the swells with elegance. Party lights sparkled along the decks. People moved in clusters, oblivious to the ocean drama nearby. Help! I screamed, arms flailing. Help me! The yacht held its course. Music drowned my cries. Panic seized me, they might pass me by entirely. Please! I shouted, voice raw. I'm right here! Then a woman appeared at the railing, champagne glass in hand. She scanned the horizon, her eyes catching mine. Oh my God! She gasped, letting the glass slip from her fingers. There's someone in the water! The yacht erupted in action. The music cut abruptly. Guests leaned over railings, pointing. Crew members rushed forward with life rings and safety gear. Throw the ring! Someone barked. An orange life ring sailed through the air, landing just out of reach. I paddled with the last of my strength, numb fingers clawing the rope. Hold on, we've got you! A crewman called. A small rescue boat was lowered from the yacht's side. 2 uniformed crew piloted it, faces set with professional concern. Sir, can you hear me? One called as they approached. You're safe now. We've got you. Strong hands hauled me aboard. I collapsed on the deck, trembling violently, water streaming from my clothes. Every part of me ached, muscles, lungs, heart. Get him inside immediately, a commanding voice ordered. Blankets, hot coffee, medical attention. I was transferred to the main deck, blankets wrapped around me, a steaming mug pressed into my hands. The yacht's solid floor felt miraculous after hours in the ocean. Real. Stable. Safe. Faces surrounded me, party guests turned rescuers in minutes. Sir, what happened? A distinguished man asked, silver hair gleaming in the sunset. How did you end up in the water? Behind him, I glimpsed a helicopter on the landing pad. This wasn't just any pleasure yacht. This was serious wealth, serious resources. My son, he tried to. My voice cracked. Easy, the captain said gently. Weathered calm. Take your time. You're safe now. The yacht's interior promised warmth, dryness, civilization. As they guided me inside, Fragments of conversation reached me. Unbelievable he survived. How long was he out there? Look at his condition. My rescue was real, but the nightmare wasn't over. The truth had to come out. Hot coffee burned my throat but spread warmth through my chest like liquid relief. I sank into the yacht's plush main salon, surrounded by concerned faces that had transformed from revelers into rescuers. "Take your time," said the silver-haired man. "I'm Senator Judson Blackwell. This is my yacht. You're completely safe here." "A senator," I muttered, realizing the source of the yacht's aura of power and wealth. I set down the mug, hands still trembling, meeting the expectant gazes around me. These people deserved the truth. "My name is Norbert Hayes," I croaked. "I was on a fishing trip with my son today. Where is he now?" Captain Thorne asked, studying a chart. "Is he still out there?" The words were hard. He pushed me overboard. Left me to die. Gasps echoed. Women covered their mouths. The senator's expression darkened immediately. "Your own son?" His voice carried authority. "He tried to murder you." "Yes," I said, struggling for breath. "Desperate for money, gambling debts, failed investments. He brought me 10 miles from shore and said he hoped sharks would finish the job. He said he'd get my inheritance for sure." "This is horrific," one guest murmured. "A son attempting to kill his father. Contact the Coast Guard and local police immediately," Judson ordered. "We have a crime to report and a suspect to apprehend." Captain Thorne was already on the radio. "Do you know where your son might be now?" he asked. "Probably back home in San Francisco, Pacific Heights," I said, giving Arnold's address. The crew moved with efficiency. "Senator, we can have a helicopter airborne in 15 minutes, Thorne reported. "Coordination with SFPD for immediate arrest." Judson's gaze returned to me, resolute. "Mr. Hayes, this will not go unpunished. We will get you home, and we will get justice." The helicopter pilot appeared, suited for immediate departure. "Aircraft ready, sir. Medical kit loaded." "I can't believe this happened," a guest whispered. "Family betrayal this cruel. It happens more than you think," Judson replied grimly. "But this man picked the wrong victim to abandon." They helped me toward the helicopter pad, my legs weak from exhaustion, yet one step closer to safety and retribution. The shift was almost dreamlike, from the brink of death in the Pacific to rescue aboard a senator's private aircraft. "Thank you," I said, my voice hoarse but sincere, as we walked toward the helicopter. "All of you. You saved my life. Arnold Hayes will spend the next 20 years regretting what he did." Judson's expression was grave, unwavering. "I'll personally make sure the district attorney prosecutes this case to the fullest extent." The helicopter's rotors whirred to life, sending a gust that scattered napkins from the abandoned party on the deck. Beyond, the sun kissed the horizon, painting the sky in molten shades of orange and crimson. My son had thought he'd succeeded in killing me today. Instead, he'd only awakened a sleeping giant. Justice was on its way. "Detective Lopez, Senator Judson Blackwell speaking. I'm calling about an attempted murder that requires immediate action." Judson's voice cut cleanly through the yacht's ambient noise as he stood at the communications console. In moments, he had transformed from gracious host to decisive political force, a man used to making things happen. "The suspect tried to drown his own father for inheritance money." "Yes, his own father," he said, listening briefly, then continuing with calm precision. "The victim is with me now, alive and ready to testify." I sat wrapped in blankets, still trying to process the surreal leap from near death in the ocean to being rescued by one of California's most influential figures. Around me, the yacht's communications room hummed with state-of-the-art equipment as Judson orchestrated the next step in my son's downfall. "Arnold Hayes," I provided. "Pacific Heights. Full address." I watched Judson relay the details with methodical exactness. Captain Thorne appeared from the navigation station, charts in hand. "Sir, Riley's completed the helicopter inspection. We can be airborne in 20 minutes. Perfect timing," Judson said, covering the phone briefly. Mr. Hayes, are you medically cleared for flight? It's a 90-minute trip to San Francisco. I'm ready, I replied, surprising myself with the steadiness of my voice. After 4 hours fighting for my life in the Pacific, a helicopter ride seemed almost trivial. Detective, Judson continued into the phone, coordinate your patrol units. The suspect believes his crime succeeded. He won't be expecting visitors. His political influence was obvious. The machinery of justice was already moving at full speed. Priority on this case. I want him in custody before sunrise. Outside, Riley Vargas moved with military precision, checking fuel levels and rotor function, every motion exact and purposeful. Flight plan filed for emergency priority, Captain Thorne reported. Coast Guard notified. Clearances approved. Guests on the yacht had gathered in small groups, offering spare clothing and expressions of outrage at Arnold's betrayal. Several pressed business cards into my hands, insisting I reach out if I needed assistance during the legal proceedings. The evidence is overwhelming, Judson explained to the detective. Witness testimony, physical proof of abandonment, clear motive. This should be a straightforward prosecution. Riley appeared in the doorway, helmet in hand. Aircraft ready for immediate departure, Senator. Weather clear all the way to San Francisco. I glanced at these strangers who had become my salvation. All of you, you've given me back my life. Arnold Hayes will regret his choices for the next 20 years. Justice moves swiftly when it has the proper motivation, Judson said grimly. The helicopter's engines roared to life, vibrating through the yacht's deck. Riley secured loose items, every action demonstrating professional care. Judson placed a firm hand on my shoulder as we approached the aircraft. Ready to face your son, Mr. Hayes, he said. The rotors spun louder, and soon we lifted off, the city's morning haze gradually revealing San Francisco's expensive neighborhoods stretching toward the bay. Detective Maria Lopez waited by an unmarked police vehicle, her expression stern yet sympathetic. Mr. Hayes, I'm sorry for what your son put you through, she said, shaking my hand. We have units positioned around his home. He returned about 30 minutes ago. Through the morning mist, I saw Arnold's BMW parked 3 blocks away in Pacific Heights. The house looked serene, pristine, a perfect facade concealing the monster within. Target has exited the vehicle. A radio crackled. Appears intoxicated, moving slowly toward the front door. Detective Lopez adjusted her earpiece. All units hold position. The father wants to confront him directly first. We moved quietly through the upscale neighborhood, the weight of the moment pressing down with every step. Expensive homes stood like silent sentinels as justice drew near. Arnold's house loomed ahead, the same home where family dinners, birthday parties, and Christmas mornings had once felt warm now seemed hollow, filled with lies. Arnold fumbled with his keys at the front door, clearly celebrating what he thought was his triumph over death. His suit was rumpled, his movements unsteady from whatever alcohol had fueled his victory toast. No, Detective Lopez whispered into her radio. I stepped into view as Arnold finally managed to unlock the door. Hello, son. His keys clattered to the concrete steps. His face strained of color, mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air. For a moment, we simply stared at each other. How are you? His voice was a strangled whisper. You were supposed to die. The ocean had other plans. I kept my tone calm, steady. After everything I had survived, this moment felt almost peaceful. I have a surprise for you too, Arnold. This can't be happening. Panic was rising rapidly in him. You drowned. I watched you go under. From their hidden positions, police officers emerged, surrounding the property with quiet precision. Detective Lopez stepped forward, handcuffs at the ready. Arnold Hayes, you are under arrest for attempted murder. Her voice carried the weight of absolute authority. You have the right to remain silent. His legs buckled. He collapsed against the expensive wood of his front door, which offered no support for the emotional ruin within him. This isn't real, This can't be real. The ocean brought me back, Arnold, I said, watching as officers fastened the cuffs with methodical care. Justice had returned me home. As they guided him toward the waiting police car, Arnold turned to me, eyes wide with desperation. Dad, I didn't mean. Yes, you did, I replied, meeting his gaze firmly. But I forgive you anyway. The car doors shut with finality. Arnold's face pressed against the window as they drove away. Detective Lopez handed me paperwork, but my attention was fixed on him disappearing around the corner, headed toward consequences that would shape the rest of his life. September sunshine warmed the courthouse steps as I walked inside to deliver my final testimony. 3 months had passed since that horrific day at sea. The legal system had moved efficiently, aided by Judson's influence and the mountain of evidence. 20 years for attempted murder, Judge Morrison announced, her gavel echoing through the crowded courtroom. This court finds family betrayal of this nature particularly heinous, and sentences accordingly. Arnold slumped at the defendant's table, his high-priced attorney unable to counter the overwhelming proof. His wife had already filed for divorce, taking the children and what remained of their assets. Gambling debts had consumed the rest. Outside, reporters clamored for statements, but I kept walking. Justice had been served. Nothing more needed to be said. That afternoon, I signed papers selling my life insurance policy and half my savings. The money would fund education for my grandchildren, ensuring Arnold's decisions could not damage their futures. They deserved better than the legacy he left behind. That's remarkably generous, Judson observed as we reviewed the documents aboard his yacht. These fishing trips had become a ritual, our friendship forged in crisis, sustained by respect. Margaret always said children shouldn't pay for their parents' mistakes, I said, casting my line into the same Pacific waters that had almost claimed my life. Besides, I have more than enough for myself. We fished in quiet companionship, 2 men bound by extraordinary circumstances. Judson's political influence had expedited justice, but our bond had grown beyond gratitude. Any regrets about the volunteer work? He asked, checking his bait. None, I said. 3 days a week, I now train ocean rescue volunteers, sharing my survival experience with people who may face similar emergencies. Turning trauma into purpose feels right. The rescue program had embraced my insights, weaving them into training modules, showing the importance of perseverance. Margaret would approve, I said, watching seabirds dive for fish. She always believed suffering was only meaningful when it helped others. Arnold's letters from prison remained unopened in my desk drawer. Someday, I might read them, even visit him, but not yet. Forgiveness is a process, not an event. The sun sank into the horizon, painting the Pacific in gold and crimson. Judson and I packed our gear, content with another peaceful day at sea. The same waters that had tested my will now offered solace and friendship. I touched Margaret's photograph in my wallet, her smile as bright as the day we married. She would be proud that this story ended not with vengeance, but with justice, generosity, and new purpose. The yacht turned toward shore, carrying 2 friends who had learned that the deepest betrayals can lead to the most meaningful connections. Justice had been served. Life went on, richer than before. If you enjoyed this story, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. To hear the next story, click the box on the left. Thank you for watching.